Awesome. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to see so many people here tonight during such a busy time of the year. So my name is Scott McQueen, and I've been involved with Capital Land Trust for 6 years, actually on their board for 6 years, and I'm the newly elected board president. So this is my first public showing as president, so I'm pretty excited about that. I have some fun folks with me here today. On the screen, we have Dave Winter, who's the executive director at Capital Land Trust. We have Mary Burcham, and Mary is the outreach and education coordinator. And we have Lawrence Reeve, who is the conservation director. So I also want to mention there's a couple of other Capital Land Trust people that are behind the scene. We have Allison Biglin, who's the membership and engagement manager, and we have Kristen Keller, who's our operations coordinator. They're pulling all the levers and wires to make this whole thing work. So the basic program flow is we're going to start here in a little bit, and we're going to talk through some of the successes and challenges that we've had at Capital Land Trust over the past year. That's with Dave. And then we're going to go into some conservation successes that we've had. And Lawrence will be sharing some fun stuff about our Bayshore Preserve. We also have Mary showing up through this whole thing. And then Scott, that's me, and Dave will be talking about where we're going with our strategic plan in 2023 and what's up next. And then we go to questions and answers, which reminds me, be sure, and if you have questions that come up throughout the course of this presentation, put them in the chat box, and Allison will be gathering those all up, and we'll look through those, and I'll direct those questions to the staff at the end. Hopefully we should have 15 to 20 minutes for questions and answers, so that should be plenty of time to get us where we need to go. So when I think about what we've got to do here tonight, everything we do at Capital Land Trust, we are driven and motivated by our strategic plan. We have a strategic plan window right now that's 2021, which was last year, to 2025. So we're just getting into the flow of that. And I think Allison is going to post the link to the strategic plan in the chat box. So I encourage all of you to go out and look at that plan and think about it and help us make sure we're doing the right things and we're going the right direction. I think I mentioned earlier, I'm the new president of the board, and I am really excited about that. And I come in with this idea that we really need to create more of a legacy for what we're doing. We're obviously creating that through our conservation properties and our conservation easements, but we also want to kind of mirror all of your legacies into what we're doing as well. So, and that leads me to the second, I'll guess, leg is what I would call it, of what I want to try to accomplish in my 2-year term as the president. And that's engagement. That's engagement with each of you and pulling you in closer to Capital Land Trust. We've been very lucky and have had an amazing group of sponsors and patrons and people that are part of our mission with us. And we just want to, I feel like in 2019, during the pandemic, we kind of lost track of some of you. So I'm going to make it a personal mission to bring you back in. And so I can see more of you and Dave can see more of you. And hopefully, well, I know that's also one of my things. We want to reinvigorate some of those big social events that we've had in the past at Capital Land Trust. So more on that later. So I talked briefly about the big goals we have in our strategic plan, and I just want to review those real quick. And I want you to make sure, I want you to listen to these, and I want you to make sure as Lawrence and Mary and Dave and I are all talking, that we're talking about these goals in a way that what we're doing lines up with the goals. Our first goal is really to use property transactions and stewardship to conserve natural areas, including working lands. And I am a big proponent of working lands, which includes farms and forests. Goal 2 is people. We're really into engaging the South Puget Sound and Chehalis Basin communities in our conservation efforts and enhancing their connection to the lands we conserve. Those are our open access preserves. But again, we want to pull you in closer and help you reconnect with a lot of these properties and what we're doing. And then the third one is ensuring the long-term organizational and financial success and sustainability of Capital Land Trust. So with that, Dave, should we do a little question and answer here? It's been quite a year, hasn't it?
It has, for
Yeah.
sure.
So what are some of the successes that you've had over the last year? And let's just kind of talk about some of that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, Scott. I appreciate you highlighting the strategic plan, and it truly is something that drives our work. And a lot of people, when we were working on it in 2020, thought, what a weird time to be working on this when the world is shut down and we're in a pandemic. And ultimately, I think it turned out to be an amazing opportunity for us to really think about the future and plan and be strategic about where we're trying to go. And what I was most excited about this year was that there was a lot of energy, right? All of us were ready to get back engaged. And I think you saw that from the opening slideshow tonight. It was the cool part about that slideshow was seeing the smiling faces again. Yeah, there were some photos with people in masks still, but I still continue to be blown away by the community engagement and the support for Capital Land Trust and local land conservation. And I appreciate, look, here we are tonight. We got 36 people on this call. I think that's amazing. It's awesome. As Scott, you mentioned, it's a busy time of year, and to see all of you out there, see a lot of familiar names, some former Capital Land Trust staff that are on the line tonight. This is super awesome. And we appreciate all that you guys do. And I echo what you said earlier, Scott, that we're eager to get people together more in 2023 and spend time stewarding the places that we love.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I have to say too, that I know Mary's going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the Bayshore Preserve, and seeing some of that. So I'm not going to steal her thunder. But for me, going out there and being able to participate in all of that was a big personal success to me. And then here's kind of a boring success, which is that our stewardship fund and how we are preparing financially to take care of these properties is really on track. And that's been a big goal of ours for a while now. So that's may seem a little boring, but it's really exciting because it really hits on that third goal of making sure that Capital Land Trust is organizationally and sound and sustainable in what we're doing going forward. So what about some challenges? I mean, I know there's a few challenges out there. There always are.
Absolutely. And we certainly continue to see these challenges today. And again, I feel grateful. We were asking what people should feel grateful for. I feel very supported by our community here, our board of directors, our committees, our volunteers, all the people that see these challenges as opportunities for the land trust to continue to grow and evolve. After being here since 1987, we've certainly seen challenges coming out of the pandemic. This year started off with a lot of, the spike in the pandemic and just how you maintain through that. So we look at those as opportunities, and I'm proud that we've been able to continue to adapt and evolve and grow with that. And we're in that moment again as an organization, which I see a ton of opportunity ahead of us. We have some staff who will be retiring at the end of the year, and we'll share more on that later tonight. There's other staff transitions that are happening as well. And so this opens up a ton of opportunities for our current hardworking staff team in terms of advancing their own career pathways. And it's also going to create some job openings with Capital Land Trust in 2023, which we'll share out in the coming months via our online newsletter, which we call the Heron. So this is one plug where we'll make sure you're all signed up for the Heron, and you can find out more information about that. But we have a lot left to do in the next 3 years of this strategic plan, and a lot of desired outcomes that we want to deliver on. And so we'll work on that. And I think this kind of reminds me of one of the successes that we did have this year was our first ever youth engagement intern. We brought on Zoe Chamberlain, and she worked with Mary. And I thought we had a wonderful first year of having a youth engagement intern, someone coming in to the organization, supporting our K through 12 programming and summer work and working with the Northwest Youth Corps. and inspiring that next generation of conservation leaders through, opportunities and career advancement right here at the Land Trust. So that and one other challenge that we're eager to get back into a regular cadence with our school field trips. As school districts have gotten back into in-person learning, the cadence of field trips has really been a little all over the place. So hopefully in the new year and next fall, we'll be back at a regular cadence of bringing organized groups to our preserves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to put a fine point on the staff comment you made too, because we have some staff transitioning. I'm going to look at and say that one of our challenges too is that we have been successful in conserving land. We've got some new properties. We've got actually, I'm thinking back 6 years when I can't even remember how many acres we had in conservation when I joined about 6 years ago in the board. But I think about how many more acres we now have in conservation, and our staff is still kind of the same. And so the challenge here is, how do we continue to grow and conserve these important properties, and how do we ensure that we have enough staff to take care of that? And it really is a challenge. I mean, we want to get those lands conserved, but we also know from an operational context, we need to be focused on where we're going with that too. So speaking of staff, one of my favorite guys, Lawrence Reeves, is going to present next. He's going to talk about some conservation successes. Lawrence, I think I've seen and interacted with you almost as much out on the mountain bike trail in Capitol Forest as in the office. It seems like when I'm out there on the weekends, that's where I can find you. So I haven't been out there over the last 6-7 months because I've been busy doing other things. So I always like seeing Lawrence out there. So Lawrence, what have you got about conservation successes?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. I appreciate it. Yeah, we had some cool projects that we completed this year. Some of them were not totally anticipated in advance, or at least long in advance. And this one here that I'm going to talk about is a good example of that. So just to provide a little bit of background, Capitol Land Trust purchased the 74-acre Bayshore Preserve, which is shown here in yellow on Oakland Bay, in 2014. It's near Shelton. It had been a 9-hole golf course for many years, and it was in the process of going out of business. We were able to work with the owners to secure time to get the funding together and ultimately purchase the 47-acre golf course and the adjacent 27-acre salt marsh that was owned by a different owner. After extensive restoration that included removing all the buildings, excavating tidal channels, and planting thousands of trees and shrubs, we opened the preserve for public access that included organized groups such as school groups. One of the big constraints that we realized we were having was adequate parking for school buses, but also during popular events like our salmon viewing, just having overflow parking availability. So we evaluated several options, including building bus parking inside the preserve. But ultimately, we were able to work out an agreement with the owner of 2 neighboring parcels. Those are those parcels that you see with the dashed black and yellow line. Those were slated to be an RV park. But we worked with that landowner, and we were able to purchase those parcels in October. And that was probably our shortest acquisition, in that it only took us about 3 months, because we didn't need to get a bunch of grant funding to put together the asking price. So yeah, it really, even though it's only about 3.9 acres, it really provided us with a lot of options. So here's a close-up of the 2 parcels in orange. As you can see, they're right along State Route 3. And if you look in the lower left side of this image, you can see our original parking area, which was really very small. So this additional 3.9 acres, it gives us a lot of parking for buses and overflow events, and yet still we'll also be able to keep the majority of it for habitat restoration. So yeah, these are the 2 new parcels that we purchased this year to add on to the Bayshore Preserve. And now Mary's going to tell us about the great salmon viewing events that we had out there on the property a couple weeks ago.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. Hey, everyone. My name's Mary. I'm the Outreach and Education Coordinator at Capital Land Trust. And one of my roles here is to coordinate our new salmon viewing program at Bayshore Preserve. And I recognize some of your names tonight, and I think we saw a lot of you out there. So 2022 was our second year hosting the salmon viewing experience at the preserve. And really it's our open invitation to the community to be a part of one of nature's most amazing migrations, and something that's just so uniquely Pacific Northwest, which is salmon runs. So working with our fantastic partner, Puget Sound Estuarium, we prepare a cohort of volunteer salmon docents or interpreters. These wonderful folks sign up for weekend shifts where they share information about the salmon and the salmon recovery efforts at the preserve with the public on our event days in early November. Puget Sound Estuarium also brings underwater cameras so we can live stream the underwater action. So not only was this year one of the best salmon runs we've seen since the property was conserved in 2014, but lots of people came too. And like I said, I think a lot of you were out there with us celebrating. This project this year was especially successful because we more than doubled the number of visitors that we saw. We saw nearly 800 during our 5 days of programming. We saw folks from as far as New York, Alaska, Hawaii, and even South Korea. And there was lots of folks checking this off of their bucket list too, which was very exciting. Some of our highlights included doing salmon-related service projects with 4 different Girl Scout troops, visiting with folks from Panorama, the Shelton Timberland Library, YWCA, Boys and Girls Club, Capital Land Trust members, homeschool groups, and lots of students from Evergreen and K-12 schools, as well as many first-time visitors. I have a huge amount of gratitude to the about 40 volunteers that stepped up to pull this off, and to Puget Sound Estuarium staff. I also want to extend a special shout out to Tom Terry. Hi, Tom. Who's been intricately involved in the monitoring of the environmental restoration efforts and was generous enough to lead 2 tours during our salmon viewing days. So now I want to introduce a short video created by Olympia Camera Club member Townsend Walton, which recapped our very first salmon viewing day event in 2022.
Chum salmon are coming up the creek right now. They've been out in the ocean for 3 to 5 years. Their coloring is gray, you know, a typical fish coloring, dark on the top, lighter on the bottom. Then when they reach the freshwater of Johns Creek, the males will turn their different brilliant colors. The chum males are kind of like a tie-dye shirt. They're kind of brown and yellow and really change, and this change is very fast. And then they come up the stream, and within a few days they've laid their eggs and then die here in the creek and provide the food and all for this environment and for a lot of different creatures.
That's nothing better than being out here at Johns Creek and the Bayshore Preserve on a sunny day to see the chub. How's that? That's good. Because it's the truth.
What do I think about this whole show?
Yeah.
I think this whole show is amazing. I'm a complete salmon nerd and proud of it. The swim up
they'll build their nests and protect the nest, and then they pretty much die.
What do they protect it from?
Other fish, predators, birds will eat the eggs sometimes. Yeah, the other males. The males really want to be the only one on the nest, so they will fight other males away.
I am learning more about salmon than I have ever learned before.
Well, that's the idea.
I didn't know salmon did all that stuff. I had no idea they stayed out in the ocean for 4 or 5 years. It's a long time out there. And then somehow they find their way back to the streams they were born. Now, I understand there are different theories being floated out there. Some told me it's the scent of the original creek. Maybe they've got some kind of radar detectors in their bodies, kind of like a bat or something. I don't know if that's true, but sure is unusual how they can find their way back here. What do you think about being out here?
I love it. I love getting to see this whole process.
Yeah, so that just gives you all kind of a glimpse into the excitement that is the Chum Salmon Run at Bayshore Preserve. Thanks again for the video, T. We'll be hosting this again in early November next year. And there is also the amazing volunteer opportunity to be a salmon docent as well. So really looking forward to next year. Now I'm gonna pass it back over to Lawrence, who's gonna share some big conservation news.
Great, thanks a lot, Mary. Yeah, that's a wonderful video. In fact, you know, when I watching all those chum in Johns Creek, it reminded me when we purchased the golf course, we also purchased the water right that went along with the golf course. As you can imagine, golf courses use a lot of water, and all of that water was being sucked right out of Johns Creek. So we were able to purchase all of that water right and return it back to in-stream flow. So now it's being it's in the Trust Water program, which is managed by the Department of Ecology. So that's kind of cool as well. But yeah, so this is a project that I started working on when I first came to the Land Trust in 2008. And I'm pleased to announce the completion of it. It's called the Myers Point Conservation Easement. It's a conservation easement over 94 acres of property on Henderson Inlet. As I mentioned, it's been in the works for a long time, and its completion is a huge achievement for Capital Land Trust.
Good job.
So this project, as I said, it's been a high priority for Capital Land Trust for so many years, in part because it was the largest remaining unprotected property on Henderson Inlet. And you can see that, you see the property, Myers Point in yellow. It is a large property. You can see how parcelized Henderson Inlet is. That's a county parcel map from 2018. So, you know, all those little slivers are parcels. And if you look at the Myers Point piece, 94 acres, it's pretty amazing. The other green properties are Capital Land Trust conserved properties. And then the orange polygons are the Washington Department of Natural Resources Woodard Bay NRCA. So yeah, I mean, what really makes this property unique is that there just aren't any other privately held parcels that come close to this size, coupled with its adjacency with the DNR's Woodard Bay NRCA, its proximity to other Capital Land Trust preserves, and the relatively undeveloped nature of the property. it's been a huge priority among the South Sound conservation community for years. So as I mentioned, it's a 94 acre parcel. It's got 2,100 feet of unarmored Puget Sound shoreline. It's got 3,600 feet of Myers Creek shoreline, and you can see the creek running through the center of the property. And there's lots of marine and freshwater wetlands. It provides habitat for dozens of fish and wildlife species, some that are state and federally listed. The conservation easement prevents any development along the shoreline or in the forest. It allows for the maintenance of the existing barn, shop, house, and garage, which are shown in the left side of this image. And it prevents subdivision of the property. So conserving this property, it was a great opportunity. It'll help prevent the harmful impacts of development and land conversion while retaining the rural characteristics of Henderson Inlet. So I really can't be more pleased that we were able to complete this. It was a huge success. And, I want to thank all the funders. Obviously we don't do this in a vacuum. We do it through funding through the state, through federal government, and also through county government. Conservation Futures Program through Thurston County. They fund a lot of our projects. The state, Washington Recreation and Conservation Office, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So it takes a lot of funding partners to make this work. So yeah. And I guess that's it. So let's see, I'll hand it back to you, Scott and Dave. And yeah, thanks for this opportunity.
Thanks, Lawrence. So, and I'm going off script, and I was told not to go off script, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, Lawrence, before you leave, real quick, say again, how long did you work on that to make that happen? Because I think it's an important point that this stuff takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of staff cooperation to make all these things come together.
Yeah, well, like I said, I first started working on it when I started in 2008, but then it kind of went through a period where nothing was going on. There was the landowner was having some issues. They weren't ready to engage with us. But from the time that they re-engaged with us, that was 2018. So a full 4 years of really a lot of work getting all of that funding together. It takes a huge amount of time to do that. We had to get funding through 4 public grant programs, as well as we got funding from private partners as well, from the Squaxin Island tribe. So it really takes a lot of work to get all of that together, get the landowner on board. So yeah, 4 years for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. And I mean, I know it's a labor of love for you and everyone at Capital Land Trust, but again, this kind of brings us back to this idea of staff and how important having the appropriate number of staff in place so we can do this sort of work. So thanks a lot, Lawrence. I appreciate that.
You bet.
And thanks for humoring me going off script too. So, okay. So Dave, it's you and I talking about looking ahead to 2023. So, we talked about a little bit about the strategic plan coming into this and what our goals are, land, people, and organization. And I want to, this is kind of your opportunity as the executive director to let our constituents here, all of the people on the call, to know how we're doing and what we're looking to accomplish in 2023.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
no pressure.
That's great. That's great. Time flies when you're having fun, and 2022 certainly flew by, and we're looking forward to 2023. I think one of the coolest things that came out of our strategic planning process was an updated mission statement, and you see that at the top of the screen here. And I think the thing that I appreciate about our mission statement is it ties conservation and community together in an explicit way. We're talking about how we conserve land, living out the tagline that we have of connecting people and conserving land. And, you're hearing us talk a lot about our 5-year strategic plan, but that's, again, because that plan really guides our work. And, And we have spent a significant amount of time in 2022 kind of fine tuning and in some cases developing implementation plans to reach those desired outcomes of the current plan. So a lot of that is leading into the work plan for 2023, both organization work plan, kind of individual staff work plans, as well as board committee work plans. And we're, as I mentioned at the beginning of this program tonight, we're going to continue leaning into this connecting people part of our work, bringing community together. I just know from seeing the people that are on this call, again, seeing 38 people joining us tonight. We had over 100 people last month for our presentation on beavers with author of Eager. And it's just, there's a thirst, there's a hunger for connection, belonging, being a part of this. And that is, I think, one of the things that makes this work so special is just, the commitment we all have to seeing land conserved in this region and protected and stewarded. And so we'll continue working on that. That's where we're headed. And one thing I want to do, Scott, is I want to have Mary talk a little bit about where we are and thinking about an events, in the community this coming year. So maybe Mary, why don't you hop on, tell us a little bit about that, and then Scott, you can piggyback on that.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, so we are in 2023 planning mode and very much looking forward to the possibility of in-person events next year. So we really want to hear from you, our members, about your preferences and comfort levels and what you're interested in doing with us. So we're going to put together a survey to collect your notes. This survey will be sent out within our monthly Heron e-newsletter. So make sure you're signed up to receive those emails to stay up to date on CLT news and opportunities. And Allison, thank you for dropping that in the chat. We really value your feedback. We're a community-based organization. So yeah, we want to hear from you and look forward to doing more fun things with you on the land.
Awesome. So I think next we're going to talk a little bit about the Inspiring Kids Preserve. I lost track. See, I went off script earlier and I knew that was going to get me in trouble. So we haven't talked about that yet, have we?
We haven't. No. And I'm on deck to talk more about that. So it's perfect. And so, I hope that many of you have had an opportunity to visit what we're calling Inspiring Kids Preserve. It's the future home of Inspiring Kids Preserve out on Henderson Inlet. This is a 108-acre property. In 2022, I should mention, it's not currently open yet. That's why we say the future Inspiring Kids Preserve. It will be eventually open to the public at large, and we're working on creating safe access onto the property, both for organized groups as well as the general public at large. But this past year, one thing we tried to do was try to invite more of the community out to go for property walks and spend time with us out there. We did some small property kind of unique activations. Thinking about the successes of the past year, I want to give a shout out to our stewardship coordinators and specifically Melissa for really leading the charge with volunteers. And we've got some amazing plantings that have happened over the years there, and just the work that's happening in terms of removing invasives and making sure that those plants have an opportunity to thrive. It's been really cool to see how that property, in the 4.5 years that I've been here with the organization, how it's changing and evolving, and the habitat enhancement work that we've been doing there has really taken off. So many of you are on this call have had your hands in the dirt and have contributed a lot to Inspiring Kids Preserve. And I know you share that same feeling as you spend time there as well. So this continues to be one of the bigger projects we have that we're currently working on, that we'll continue working on in 2023. We see our Inspiring Kids Preserve as a place that inspires the kid in all of us. And it's an opportunity for kids in our region to learn and explore and be restored. we hope it's something that enables people of all ages and abilities to interact with and gain appreciation for the natural world. So that's going to be a major focus. As I mentioned, it's not open yet. We've got work to do to get there. We were able to accomplish some benchmarks this past year, and we're continuing to work on the design and the permitting and planning for future infrastructure and public access.
So needless to say, there's a lot more coming on this, and Inspiring Kids is all about the kids. I'm super excited. If it's anything like Bayshore, I can't wait to get going on that. So Mary, you were going to talk about Conservation Kids.
Yeah, so Conservation Kids is an outdoor education program that we piloted in 2019 at Inspiring Kids Preserve. As you can imagine, we've been on hold for a few years, but very much looking forward to getting back on the land this spring. This program serves third grade students from North Thurston Public Schools in the spring. We partner with Puget Sound Estuarium and newly Black Hills Audubon Society to guide these 8-year-olds through different learning and exploration stations. It's really amazing seeing these kids come alive, kind of conquer some fears, share what they know, interacting with our volunteers. It's a really good time. We eventually hope that this program will serve all third graders in North Thurston Public Schools. So I think we have 13 elementary schools to work towards. This year, we're looking forward to bringing 3 schools out of the 13 out there. And we piloted with 1 school in 2019. So coming this late February, maybe early March, we're going to be searching for education volunteers to help lead students through these hands-on stations. So the Heron, social media, checking our website, these are all great ways to stay in the loop.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary. And we've got Lawrence up next talking about the blooms restoration.
Yeah,
So
thank you, Scott.
you know what? I'm just going to say this. This whole section is going long. We're not gonna fit in the time slot because we're so excited about what's happening next year. So anyway, we're still gonna have time for questions, I promise. So be sure and put your questions in the chat box, and we'll get to them as we wrap this stuff up. So
great, thanks, Scott. And I'll try to keep it brief. So this is our first ever Oregon spotted frog habitat enhancement project. It's taking place on our Blooms Preserve, which is in the Black River watershed. You can see this location map displayed. We purchased this 142-acre property in 2 phases starting in 2018 and completed the second phase in 2020. The property has over 1 mile of Blooms Ditch and a tributary ditch, which supports coho, salmon, cutthroat trout, and Olympic mud minnows. When we found out there were Oregon spotted frogs on the property, we started working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, WDFW, and the Center for Natural Lands Management to develop an enhancement project that would benefit both fish and the spotted frog. The pink stars in the image show where the project will take place on the property. The Oregon spotted frog is a federally listed species. They require open, seasonally flooded fields for laying their eggs, which you can see in the background of this photo. But like Goldilocks, the water has to be just right in terms of depth, flow rate, temperature, and timing of inundation. There also needs to be vegetation to attach their egg masses to. Grazed cattle pastures in the floodplains have historically provided good habitat for the frogs. So the plan we developed with the help of our project partners involves excavating 24 shallow ponds for the frogs and placing large woody debris in Bloom's Ditch for the fish. The shallow ponds will be in clusters of 4 and will have breeding shelves on the periphery that will be planted with emergent wetland vegetation. And that will resist the encroachment of invasive reed canary grass. And reed canary grass, it grows too dense and coarse for spotted frogs to utilize for egg laying. The excavation work is scheduled to start in August, and it's funded through the State Recreation and Conservation Office. And we will be documenting this project with photos and videos, so stay tuned.
awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. And I just have to say that I've been out there, and when people say it's a ditch, it kind of really does it a disservice, because there is so much going on there. And it reminds me of where I got started as a conservationist. It was in Colorado on a giant irrigation canal. So anyway, I just had to say that. So thank you for your work there.
You bet.
All right. So Dave, you want to talk a little bit about the heron and opportunities for volunteers?
Yes. So I'm sure many of you enjoy seeing this slide because there's faces you recognize on this slide. And really, this is just an opportunity for us to say thank you to all of you for your support of the organization, for all the things that you do. If you don't know already, if you might be new to the organization and joining us for the first time tonight, there's a wide variety of ways that you can get involved in the organization. You can visit our website. The ORG looks like it got cut off here on this page, capitallandtrust.org. But you can go to our volunteer page, and there's just a number of different ways that people can contribute and support the organization as a volunteer. And we'd love to have your support. There's the link to our website. So again, just thank you. Can't say enough how much we appreciate all that you do for the organization.
Yeah, I have to echo that. And I also want to encourage you, even if you can't volunteer or you don't have time to do these things, please go out and at least visit our public access preserves, because they are awesome. Bayshore Preserve, we've talked about, Hillburn Preserve, the Randall Preserve, and Darling Creek's got some great trails around that area. So just amazing spots to go connect with the land. So Dave, we have a special guest, don't we, who is retiring soon.
Yeah, and it's not the Oregon spotted frog that's stuck in my throat. It's actually, many of you know this gentleman, Mike Lay. We all want to take a moment and recognize the contributions that Mike has made to the organization, and recognize all the hard work, the dedication of Mike, who is retiring at the end of this year. Mike has a long history with Capital Land Trust. He was a volunteer before he was a paid staff member. He's been on our staff for 8 years now. And those of you who have had an opportunity to go for a walk with Mike or work with Mike, you know how much fun he has doing his job. He brings smiles to our staff team every day. I always appreciate how Mike has prioritized relationships with landowners, and how he's really rallied and supported a dedicated group of volunteer land stewards. Many of you are on the call tonight too. So we want to take a quick moment here to thank Mike, honor him for his commitment to local land conservation. So sit back. I hope you enjoy this short video of Mike in his element out on a Capital Land Trust property.
Hi, my name is Mike Lay. I'm the Stewardship Coordinator for Capital Land Trust, and welcome to the Beartitch Conservation Easement, a donated conservation easement by Frank Beartitch and his sister Frances Davis in 2005. And it's just, you can see this amazing Sitka spruce. There's a lot of Sitka spruces here, which is kind of an uncommon tree because most of them were logged during World War I and II. We're on the Wishkah River behind me. We've seen twinberry and Myanthemum and lots of cascara and all kinds of cool stuff. This is one of my favorite properties.
So thanks, Mike. You can, if you have special comments you want to make, Mike is here. You can kind of share your comments in the chat box. He'd be happy to respond there too. For those of you that work with Mike, you probably noticed his common tool belt with him where he keeps his clippers was prominently displayed in that video. But Mike, we're going to miss you as part of the paid staff here. But we know we're getting an Uber volunteer in return, and we can't wait to see you in 2023 at I'm sure, many a work party. So thanks, Mike, for all you've done as part of our staff team.
Thanks, Mike. Yep, definitely. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes for questions and answers. So if you have questions, please type them into the chat box, and Allison will gather those up so we can address them. And if you have specific, Allison, or excuse me, Mary, Dave, or Lawrence, or even me, if you want to ask any questions, just put our name next to that, please. We should have preloaded a question. So, Mary, so what type of so I have to say this, Mary, you know, when I came out to Bayshore with my wife, who's a school teacher, one of the things she was amazed at is we met 4 or 5 other retired school teachers that were out there volunteering, and they were so excited about all the kids. My wife saw 3 different kids from her past school classes that were out there on the preserve that day. So anyway, that was just a lot of fun. So do we have a question yet?
Cool. We love our retired teachers.
Yeah.
And our current teachers too. Thank you for all you do.
All right. So Kathleen is asking, I'm curious to hear about your work with the Squaxin Island tribe. Oh, that's we have some good stuff going there. So Dave, why don't you take that? And
Yeah,
probably
good.
Lawrence too.
And folks will recognize that name, right? Kathleen Ackley, who's on the call tonight. So great to have you here, Kathleen. Kathleen, former Capital Land Trust employee, as many of you know, she needs no introduction. Current executive director of the Wallowa Land Trust out in Eastern Oregon. Kathleen, I can give you a pat on the back for the amazing work you're doing locally with tribes in your area. You're really leading the way for land trust. It's been awesome to see the work that you're doing, and we're watching you and looking at different ways we might be able to learn from what you're doing. Our partnership with the Squaxin Island tribe continues to grow and evolve, and I'll let Lawrence share a little bit about some of the conservation recent collaboration we've done there. But that's another area of focus for us in 2023 is we actually have a long-standing memorandum of understanding with the Squaxin Island tribe that goes back to 2002. And so both the tribe as well as us have a desire to update that strategic plan because it's very focused around acquisition, and the partnership has evolved to so many other things in terms of connecting people and getting the education effort and connecting people to the natural world. And so that's one of the things that's also on our work plan in 2023 is updating that memorandum of understanding. And we hope to work really closely with the Squaxin Island tribe as we develop Bayshore and Inspiring Kids Preserve, and we work on signage and recognizing the long history here in this area for all the local tribes. So Lawrence, maybe make a mention of some of the recent conservation successes we've had.
Sure. Yeah. One of the more recent ones was in Skookum Valley in Mason County, where Skookum Creek drains down into Totten Inlet, and there's a beautiful valley, up in that watershed. There's coho that are found in Skookum Creek. There's a huge elk herd that comes out of the Capitol Forest down into the valley in the winter, and we were fortunate to be able to partner with the Squaxin Island tribe and help them with fundraising. We have a lot of experience with several grants that they had never utilized before. National Coastal Wetlands Grant Program through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program. So we wrote those grants, sort of in partnership with them to help them get the funding in part for that project. And it was a huge success. They conserved several hundred acres. It's going to go back into tribal ownership. And, we're just thrilled when we can work with the tribe and help them get some of their ancestral land back under their ownership and their management. So yeah, that's just one example of how we work with the tribe.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. And thanks, Dave. So Dan is asking, is there a target date to open the Inspiring Kids Preserve to the public? And I'm so excited about this preserve, and I'm just going to leak out there that you can look forward to some big things coming on this. But I'll let Dave give the official response to when we're going to open it, so I don't screw that up too.
Well, and unfortunately, Dan and the rest of us, I hesitate to even give a date, but there's still work to be done in the permitting with Thurston County, and ideally, I think we're on target to move forward with that in early 2023. And then we will have some fundraising efforts we're really looking at a 3-year fundraising effort, but there's kind of a construction plan that is also in phases. And so we're in that planning work still, and we want to get this property open as soon as possible. And I know many of you want to see that happen as soon as possible too. So, you know, even though we're on a 3-year fundraising strategy, I would like to be optimistic here and think that we could open it sooner than 3 years from now.
Yeah, and I just want to add in there too, as far as fundraising is concerned, this will be a significant push for us coming up. So if you're considering donating a large amount, please reach out to Allison or Dave or any of us to start talking about how that can become part of your legacy too. All right, so I think I have another question here. I'm having to bounce back and forth between screens. The other one is, how often will you present like this? Monthly, perhaps? Alan is asking that.
Yeah, great question. And so this is one of those silver linings that came out of the pandemic, as we introduced these virtual conversations, and we've this year we did 3. We did one in March, we did one in November, and we're doing this one now. And as of now, that's a similar cadence and similar plan for 2023 as this formal virtual conservation conversation. Tonight, you got to see a little bit about the Blooms Restoration Project. We plan in November to share kind of 2023 a conservation conversation on the Blooms Restoration, and get to see, you know, the completion of that project and learn more about how that all went. So that's one topic we know about, and we'll be working on a couple of others. And as Mary mentioned at the beginning, we'll be sending out a survey and thinking about events and this virtual aspect of it. You know, we'll be looking for your interest in these kinds of things as well.
Awesome. So let's see, are there any more questions? Dan is asking, is anything happening with possible conservation easement on the Mankey timberland in the sub-Black Hills? Oh, I love, talk about mountain bike trails. That place is awesome.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about that, having ridden there, maybe a few times. But yeah, Dan, that's a good question. You know, we were really hopeful. We were partnering with the city of Olympia and Mankey in kind of a 3-way sort of, you know, collaboration to see if there was some way that we could make something happen there. Unfortunately, it just that the timing was not right for Mankey to really come to the table in a way that we needed to try to make this work out. So it's on the back burner. We have a great relationship with Mankey, and you know, I continue to check in with them periodically, and you know, it's really my sincere hope that someday that is going to happen, because I think just the amount of public use that property gets, it's such a resource for recreationists, and not just mountain bikers, you know, dog walkers, hikers, trail runners. Yep. I mean, it's a real asset to the community. So we're gonna keep on it and keep working with Mankey and the city. You know, we've got some great partnerships, and I think someday, hopefully, while I'm still here at the Land Trust, we'll get it done.
Yeah, and I want to say too that Capital Land Trust is so well known in those circles, and these are the exact kind of opportunities I know Lawrence looks for on the kind of a little bit of the multiple use, have recreation opportunities and conservation involved. So I'm always, it's one of the reasons, honestly, I've stayed so long engaged with Capital Land Trust. So we're wrapping up here. And I want you to think about some things. And I started this evening talking about the idea of legacy and engagement. And I'm going to challenge everyone on the phone here tonight, because we've had you know, I know there's a lot of great volunteers, a lot of stalwart people who have supported Capital Land Trust, and I want to thank you for all of that. But I want you to think even beyond. It was a great question about inspiring Kids Preserve and how we're going to do that and what we're going to get done. You know, it's Capital Land Trust started in 1987, and since then we've conserved 85 properties, over 6,500 acres, and 16 miles of Puget Sound shoreline. That's significant. I love the maps. I'm a geography wonk. When Lawrence put up that map and you start seeing how we're strategically looking at properties to create these pathways for wildlife, it's so important. And then on top of that, we also have those 4 public access preserves. And I encourage all of you, I'm going to imagine that a good portion of you have already been out there, but those things are just, we need to create the next generation of conservationists. And that's actually, that's what excites me too about Capital Land Trust. So to do that, we need money, and we need money to conserve the natural areas, money to provide the trails and access, money to provide educational experiences for the children, and money to operate. So please contribute. You can join me and go to capitallandtrust.org and click on the donate button, or reach out to any of us and talk to us about volunteering opportunities. I mean, there's so many things to do on these properties to help out. And it's just a really rewarding work. So I think with that, I'd really appreciate everyone coming tonight. And I'm looking forward to the next one. I don't know if Dave will invite me back after this performance, but I'm hoping he does. And we'll see you out on those preserves. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays. Thanks for coming out,
Yeah,
everybody.
happy holidays.